I woke up sometime 3 in the morning. I was breathing like I ran a marathon. I went and stayed with my mom so she could monitor me. I had about 3 hours of chest pain that night. I didn't end up going to the hospital because both her and I, we weren't sure about the attitudes around this type of thing, and it was also 3 in the morning and I was struggling to kind of just exist. I'm Kayla. I'm in my 5th year of performance production and design at Ryerson University. I was nervous about to begin with because I work in theater, which does a lot of last minute stuff, and I know if you don't plan, things normally go poorly, you overlook stuff. And so with the coming out as quickly as they were, I was nervous about that, so I was doing a lot of research, and I knew I wasn't in a very at-risk age group. Some of the stuff I was reading about the were concerning me, so I didn't want to get after Ryerson mandated it. I still didn't want to get and I held out for a while, but financially, it didn't feel like an option for me not to give up, because what am I supposed to do for the time when I'm not in school? How long are these mandates going to stay in? And I've had conversations with friends about it, and it was a very hard decision to get it in order to attend school, and it kind of went poorly, but I guess that'll happen later in the interview. My program was one of the few that had exemptions to be in person, even in the fall semester, and I was only attending in the winter semester. So I knew that they were mandated. I knew masks were in place. They offered testing for people with exemptions, either medical or religious, but I didn't qualify for any of that, so that wasn't really an option. I didn't quite understand why that wasn't an option for people who didn't want to give. There wasn't an option for me to continue going to school because my program didn't have an all-online option at all. And being the only person in my family who wasn't, there was also that social aspect kind of layered on top of everything. I'm in my 5th year. I had 3 courses left to graduate. Dropping out didn't feel like an option for me because of that being so close to the end. So with the way OSAP is set up, if you drop out of a program, all your grant money becomes loans, so the amount you owe the government essentially doubles, or whatever that number happens to be, and I wouldn't be in a financial position to do that, especially without any sort of degree or schooling finished, despite me doing 4 years of university. So yeah, it didn't feel like there was an option not to give back. And especially living where I was living up north, I didn't know anyone who was in the same situation I was. And it definitely felt like coercion, and I think like I had already decided medically that I didn't for myself need to get vaccinated, so I wasn't thinking of it as a medical decision. I was thinking of it as a financial situation, and that's not the way you should decide your healthcare. So my first vaccine went okay. I had about 20 to 30 minutes of feeling pressure in my chest, kind of like if you swim to the bottom of the pool, you feel that pressure around you. But I didn't think anything of it, and it never came back. It was fine. I went to get my second dose, and the nurse asked me if I had any reaction to the first one, and I told her about the chest pressure, and she didn't say anything about it. And it was fine at first. I felt a little bit dizzy after I got up, and that was it. And so that was around 3 o'clock when I got on October 7th. Around 5 o'clock, I went to have a shower, and when I came out, my heart did this weird skipping a beat thing. And then later that night, I started to get a little short of breath, and I told my mom, and we decided we'll deal with it in the morning if it's still there. I woke up sometime 3 in the morning. I was breathing like I ran a marathon. I went and stayed with my mom so she could monitor me. I had about 3 hours of chest pain that night. I didn't end up going to the hospital because both her and I, we weren't sure about the attitudes around this type of thing, and it was also 3 in the morning and I was struggling to kind of just exist. And the shortness of breath went away in the morning and it was gone for a couple days, and then it came back, which is when I went to the emergency room. They did a whole bunch of testing and I came out high for blood clots, so I had to stay overnight and get a CT scan, which came up normal. They sent me home and I went to the hospital to talk to my doctor about it. And I was sent to a respirologist who thought I had asthma, and I tried an inhaler for a month and that didn't do anything, so I had a full pulmonary function exam which came out with tachycardia, and now since then I'm seeing a cardiologist and getting more testing done. I need like 9 to 10 hours of sleep now because of the extra physical output, which means I have less time to work on my school. I struggle to focus in class sometimes because I need extra oxygen, especially wearing a mask. I walk to school and it feels like I'm jogging the entire time, so sometimes I need to leave early so I can catch my breath before I go to class. Sometimes I'm just too tired to work on my schoolwork, depending on how bad my day was. And I'm having to juggle like testing and calling the doctor and stuff while also being in class and dealing with normal schoolwork stuff. Financially and mentally kind of go together in a lot of ways. So theater, which is what I'm going to school for, the production side of things, it's very physically demanding. There's a lot of walking around, pushing boxes, lifting stuff. And with my condition, I don't know if it's permanent or not, so I don't know if I can even do the work that I'm going to school for. My backup careers that I was thinking of are also physically demanding, so that's kind of out of the option. There's a chance that I need to go to school again so I can do a desk job, but also it's all unknown because I don't know if my condition is permanent or not, or what I can or can't do. So financially and mentally it's a struggle there. I'm in job hunting season right now and I can't apply to anything because I don't know what I can do, and all of the desk jobs I'm not qualified for. So it's been stressful, to say the least. I feel very nervous about talking about my situation with people. There's definitely a stigma around it. I've gotten a little bit more comfortable as it has come up, and I have actually had to mention it to people. I have to breathe through my mouth now a lot of the times, which I'm very self-conscious about it, especially over like Zoom calls and things. Yeah, I haven't been wearing masks in school because with the heat I can't anymore. The one time I walked into school and it was my first time going to that class without a mask, and it was with the heat. I didn't feel like I was much worse than normal, but I walked in and the first thing someone said to me was, "Jesus, Kayla, are you okay?" And I told them, and that was the first time I told anyone at school that I had a reaction to the vaccine and that I was dealing with this stuff. And it felt like a weight was lifted off of me to actually say it out loud to a group of people when I didn't know how they'd react to it. But despite that, I'm still nervous about talking about it with strangers or worried about them noticing that I'm struggling to breathe or walk or whatever it happens to be. It wasn't much, but it was, wow, that's rare. And that was it. And I really felt like saying it's not as rare as you think it is, knowing what I know about the statistics, but I didn't end up saying it because I didn't want to be that person, I guess. That it's rare doesn't bother me as much because I know the way it's being sold to people and the way it's being talked about kind of presents that. So unless you're looking for information that doesn't support that argument, you're not going to find it, especially with all the censorship that's going on. The "I don't believe you" bothers me a lot. Less so from like regular people, considering I've been told that by doctors. But it still bothers me because this is a very real thing and it's a very well documented thing. Professional, I've been very lucky. The one supervisor I was working with, when I told him I had my reaction and I couldn't work anymore, he was very okay with it. He didn't question that I was faking it or anything, and he was just as unhappy as I was that the school kind of made me do it. In school, I had a teacher on Thursday, and I know it's your job, but she came up to me and asked, like, why aren't you wearing you have an exemption? And she was very polite about it, but it bothered me, especially she said something along the lines of, students have been emailing me with the rising cases, and I had to wonder, was that general, or were they emailing her about me not wearing a mask? Which feels really gross when the only reason you're not is because I don't want to be in a situation where I pass out in class or I can't take in any information because I'm not getting enough air. Personally, my friend group is really good. I haven't talked to anyone in Toronto, my friends in Toronto, about it. Yeah, I've also definitely seen online in some of the few injury groups that aren't highly censored that people are saying like, hey, I told you so, and that it feels terrible because like I was coerced into it, and that's not something you should be saying to someone, even if they weren't coerced in it, because they thought they were doing the right thing when they made that decision. And they're suffering enough as it is, they don't need that extra poking the buttons.